for the crime of unauthorized possession of Earth literature. This tribunal sentences you, Richard Vance, to death by atmospheric venting in 72 standard hours.
Richard Vance, a patent attorney from Boston, does not flinch. He raises one finger, calm as if requesting a library extension.
Your Honor, before we proceed to execution, I believe I am entitled to file Form 7b Sigma, the pre-execution legal review, as per Coalition Code 401.7.
Form 7b Sigma, that archaic procedural relic. This is a capital sentencing, not a seminar on historical legal curiosities.
The gallery erupts in bewildered whispers. Even the translators struggle to pass a request no one has made in 4 centuries.
Your Eminence, the protocol does mandate the form if requested. It is in the archives, I think.
Then find it. And if it delays this execution beyond what is prescribed, I will hold you personally accountable.
The junior clerk, Thaleen, scuttles out of the chamber, all 4 arms fumbling with data slates.
400 years of dust on that form, and still it binds them. Good.
In a single motion, a human patent attorney had turned a capital sentence into a procedural labyrinth, and the Coalition's highest court had no choice but to enter it. Junior clerk Thaleen raced into the tribunal's deepest sublevel, a crypt of obsolete parchment and forgotten data slates.
7b Sigma, pre-execution review. It must be here. The index said Subvault 4, Section Crimson.
After an hour of frantic searching, Thaleen's upper right hand closed on a crumbling binder labeled in archaic script. Form 7b Sigma.
This delay is an insult to the court. How long must we wait for a piece of paper?
2 guards escorted Richard to a holding cell. He went without resistance, his expression unreadable.
So this is where the paper trail begins. 30 days to turn their own rules against them.
Thaleen filed the form with trembling hands. The system accepted it, triggering an automated 30-day review period.
30 days. I will not tolerate this mockery of justice.
The automated system recorded the filing. No appeal, no exception. For the next 30 days, Richard Vance could not be executed.
30 days.
That's a start. Within the hour, Richard had convinced the guards to provide a secured data terminal. The cell's sterile silence filled with the hum of ancient legal archives.
Coalition Code. Every clause, every amendment, every procedural footnote. They never expected a human to read it.
He started with the arrest record. In 7 places, the customs officers had skipped mandatory protocols, missing witness signatures, untranslated evidence logs, improper chain of custody.
7 violations. Each one triggers a mandatory review. If I file them sequentially, that buys me 210 days before they can even set a new execution date.
He cross-referenced every procedural manual, every judicial precedent, building a lattice of motions that would choke the court's calendar.
They designed this system to be fair. They never imagined it could be a weapon.
By the 3rd day, his desk was buried in holographic documents, each motion drafted with the precision of a patent claim.
The first motion goes in tomorrow. Violation 1. Failure to provide a translator during the customs interrogation. That alone invalidates the arrest.
He stacked the digital filings, 7 separate motions, each one an explosive charge planted at the foundation of the tribunal's case.
30 days is just the beginning. They have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes.
The next morning, guards escorted Richard back to the tribunal. He carried a data slate loaded with his first motion.
Your Honor, under Coalition Code 12-47, the customs interrogation lacked a certified translator. I move to dismiss all charges and void the arrest.
A procedural technicality, this tribunal will not be derailed by such pettiness.
The precedent in Draylen v. Customs is clear. No translator means no admissible evidence. Without the interrogation, the charges collapse.
Rentar's gavel trembled. He knew the law, and it was not on his side.
The court will hold a hearing on this motion, but this is far from over.
3 hours later, the hearing concluded. Richard had dismantled the prosecution's argument piece by piece.
Pending full review, the execution is stayed. The system will log the motion.
The order flashed across the terminal. Execution stayed. Indefinite hold. Richard had bought more than time. He had bought a fortress.
1 down, 6 to go.
Within hours, Richard filed his second motion. Improper evidence tagging under code 33-9. The system logged it. Clock restarting.
Another motion? The review clock resets to 30 days with each filing. This will never end.
Motion after motion, each a fresh 30-day fuse. The tribunal's docket became a tangled mess.
They're not used to fine print. Patent law. Argue the edges and the center crumbles.
He worked 18-hour stretches. Desk buried in holographic texts. Sleep came in brief bursts.
How many motions? He turns our procedures into a weapon.
Vrentar's gavel cracked the bench. The execution chamber stayed dark, unused. Clerks drafted emergency memos. The system, bound by code, accepted every filing without prejudice.
7 motions. 210 days minimum, plus appeals. They'll trip on red tape for years.
The execution date vanished into procedural horizon. The human was a parasite in the legal machine. Richard pulled up star charts and arrest logs on his terminal. The coordinates of his capture flickered inside a name he hadn't expected. The Maelstrom Expanse.
The Maelstrom Expanse, contested by 3 species, never fully annexed. No one holds jurisdiction here. If my arrest occurred there, this isn't just a loophole. It's a jurisdictional black hole. I can move to dismiss the entire case.
He drafted the motion with surgical precision, citing the Veltor Accords and the unbroken arbitration precedent.
Your Honor, the arrest occurred in the Maelstrom Expanse. No sovereign holds jurisdiction there. I move to dismiss and refer to arbitration under the Veltor Accords.
The Maelstrom Expanse. That region hasn't been contested for centuries. This is a contrived distraction.
Contrived or not, the Accords bind this court. Without clear jurisdiction, every sentence you pass is null.
The tribunal's legal counsel confirmed the motion's validity. The case was transferred to the interspecies arbitration chamber. All proceedings stayed for a minimum of 1 standard year.
A year? With the other motions still pending, they won't see the inside of that chamber for a decade.
A year! A year! That human has buried this court in paper and now strips away its authority. What else will he find?
Days later, still buried in research, Richard cross-referenced the Veltor Accords ratification clause. A footnote caught his eye. Subject to final confirmation, 3 signatories pending.
3 signatories pending. The Veltor Accords are the bedrock of coalition authority. If ratification was never completed,
he dove deeper, pulling up archaic records and sealed footnotes. Each reference reinforced the anomaly. The original charter had never been fully sealed.
This isn't just a loophole, it's a constitutional flaw. If the charter isn't valid, every ruling derived from it is void.
He drafted a formal motion for discovery, requesting access to the original charter records held in the Third Archive vault.
The defendant requests access to the original Veltor Accords. Those records are sealed by High Council directive.
The Accords are the legal foundation of this tribunal. I have a right to examine them for my defense. Deny me and you violate your own code.
The motion was logged, and, after a reluctant review, approved. The Third Archive vault's heavy seal cracked open for the first time in centuries. Inside, crystalline databanks held the original parchment. The index flickered, ratification seals missing, replaced by a single word, contested.
Contested seals. If the charter was never ratified, the coalition has no legal existence. I am not just fighting a sentence. I am looking at the collapse of their entire justice system.
The archive interface revealed addendums. During the Desolation Wars, 3 species, Qatari, Elan, Lirans, refused to ratify the Accords under duress.
Qatari, Elan, Lirans, their seals never affixed. The Accords are a ceasefire, not a constitution. No wonder they buried this.
He pulled the original veto records. Each cited coerced consent and lack of sovereign representation.
Every court, every law, rests on a document that legally doesn't exist. My case is a footnote in a galactic fraud.
On the terminal, void seals glowed red, nullification stamps suppressed for millennia.
They've been ruling on thin air for 4,000 years. The entire edifice is void.
He saved every file, every signature log, not just leverage, a weapon to dissolve the Coalition's legal existence.
If I file this, they either admit the truth or crush me. The system breaks.
The weight settled. No longer a defendant, he was a detonator strapped to the foundation of galactic law.
I need to get this out, but they'll kill to keep it silent.
Guards escorted Richard from the archive vault. His face betrayed nothing, but his mind was a storm of strategy.
They'll scrub the archives the moment they realize what I've seen. I need this in the official record now.
He filed an emergency submission of evidence, motion for judicial notice of the Charter's flawed ratification. The system logged it at 1423.
Seal that filing. Delete it from the docket before anyone sees. That human is a cancer.
The order came too late. The evidence was part of the public record, protected by the same code Richard had weaponized. That night, guards transferred Richard to a deep-level isolation facility. His terminal was confiscated. The cell was a tomb.
The truth is out. They can't unseal it without a public hearing. I've got them in their own trap.
In the silence, he scratched notes on plas sheets with a smuggled stylus, drafting further appeals by feel.
He's in isolation and still filing. How is that possible? Find his leak.
The more they isolate me, the more they prove their case against themselves. Every move they make is another exhibit.
A food slot hissed open. A guard glanced away, sliding a news tablet beneath the tray. The screen flickered. Coalition Legitimacy Crisis Human Files Evidence.
It's out. The public knows the Charter's seals are blank. Rentar can't bury this now.
Who leaked this? The High Council is demanding answers. That human must be silenced, legally or not.
I only sent the document to a single journalist. The truth deserves air. I won't let them kill him for it.
Public screens across the sector blared the scandal. Void seals. The Coalition's legal foundation is a myth. Protests sparked on 3 worlds.
They can't kill me now without confirming the system is a fraud. I've become the one person they can't touch.
Issue a media blackout order. Classify all Charter records. I don't care about precedent. Do it.
In his cell, Richard listened to the distant alarms. He scratched another motion on plas sheet. Petition to void. All rulings based on illegitimate Charter.
They'll trace the leak back to me, but if this saves him, it's worth the Tribunal's wrath.
Now the galaxy watches. The next move isn't legal, it's political. And they've handed me the lever.
In an ornate chamber far above the Tribunal, the High Council convened. Richard's petition, motion to void all rulings under illegitimate Charter, had arrived and its legal force was undeniable. The Council's preliminary ruling flashed across the sector. All executions and capital proceedings are hereby stayed pending a full constitutional review of the Veltor Accords.
A stay on every execution. This council has surrendered to a procedural anarchist.
The news echoed through the isolation block. Richard listened to the public address, a faint smile on his lips.
A constitutional review. They can't rule against me without admitting the Charter is valid, which it isn't. I've cornered the entire legal system.
Across 3 worlds, courts fell silent. Judges refused to hear cases, unsure if their authority was real. The bureaucratic machine seized up. A guard slid a new tablet through the slot. High Council requests your presence via hologram for the review hearing. Richard's stage was set.
They want me to testify. That means everything I say becomes part of the official record. This is my trial now, theirs, not mine.
Draft every counter-argument. Flood the review with procedural motions. If he wants to play bureaucracy, we'll bury him in it.
The conflict had transcended a single death sentence. Richard Vance now held the future of the Coalition's legal order in his Plaz sheet notes, and both sides knew it. Richard's hologram materialized before the High Council, calm and precise, his voice carrying the weight of months of imprisonment.
Counselors, I present the original Veltor Accords. The 3 seal slots are vacant. Ratification never occurred. Your entire legal order rests on a void document.
Gasps rippled through the chamber. Delegates stared at the projection of the ancient parchment, the blank spots glowing red on the display.
This is a fabrication, a human trick to destroy us. I demand his testimony be struck from the record.
Check your own archives. Judicial Order 7701, signed by Vrentar himself, authorized the sealing of these records centuries ago. The suppression begins with this court.
A clerk rushed to verify. Within moments, the holographic screen displayed the seal order, Vrentar's signature unmistakable.
That order was classified for security. You overstep, Vance.
The High Council leader, an ancient Lyran, raised a trembling hand. This tribunal will recess. Chief Justice Vrentar, you are suspended pending an investigation.
I've become the accuser, and the judge is the defendant. The system isn't just broken, it was rigged from the start.
The review shifted from a constitutional debate to a criminal investigation. For the first time, the Coalition faced not just a legal void, but its own corruption. In the isolation cell, a smuggled tablet flickered. Chief Justice Vrentar suspended, charged with conspiracy to suppress foundational records. Richard read it with no satisfaction, only a heavy stillness.
Vrentar was the architect, but the whole system was built on a lie. They'll scapegoat one man and pretend the rot stops there. It won't wash.
Across the sector, crowds gathered outside courts, holding signs demanding a full reset of the legal code. Justice for Vance became a rallying cry. The High Council reconvened in closed session. Half called for a grand amendment to retroactively ratify the charter. The other half demanded Richard Vance's immediate release as a gesture of good faith. In the archives, tribunal security seized Thaline. The leak had been traced. She was charged with sedition, her forearms bound.
They'll make an example of me. But the truth is out, and they can't stuff it back into a vault.
Thaline took a risk for me. I can't let them bury her. If I'm going to tear down this system, I need to protect the people who helped.
A guard slid another note through the slot. Council offers immunity and deportation if you drop the charter nullification. Reply within 1 cycle. The carrot, at last.
They're bargaining. That means they're scared. If I accept, I save myself but condemn everyone else. If I refuse, I might not survive, but the truth gets its day.
Richard scratched his answer on the back of the note. No deal. The charter must be invalidated. He passed it back through the slot. The die was cast. The council's comeback was swift. A broadcast decree that the review would climax in a final public hearing, with Richard Vance as the sole witness. His testimony would either save or doom the Coalition.
They're putting the whole system on my testimony. If I falter, I die and the lie survives. If I speak, I might still die, but the truth gets a fighting chance.
He spent the next weeks in frantic preparation, scratching arguments onto Plaz sheets by memory, reviewing every clause and loophole. The cell became a one-man law office.
I haven't seen a Boston autumn in years. The smell of damp leaves, the chill in the air. I might never feel that again, but if I don't fight, no one will.
The night before the hearing, a guard pushed through the slot a tiny object wrapped in cloth, an old earth penny, worn and smooth. A simple act of solidarity.
Someone believes. This penny has traveled across light years to remind me I am not alone. I'll carry it with me to that stand.
Dawn came cold and blue. Guards flanked him down a corridor lined with silent onlookers, their faces a mix of awe and fear. He was loaded into a hover transport, under heavy escort. Outside, crowds roared, some waving signs of support, others demanding his silence.
This is it. The final argument. All my loopholes and motions have led to this one moment. I either break the system, or it breaks me.
The transport descended into the grand amphitheater's load bay. Thousands of delegates and billions of viewers waited. Richard Vance, patent attorney from Boston, stepped out to face the galaxy. The amphitheater fell silent as Richard Vance ascended the central podium. Thousands of delegates leaned forward. Billions more watched via live feed. He wore no chains, but the weight of a death sentence hung in the air.
I stand here not as a defendant, but as evidence. The original Veltor Accords bear 3 blank seal slots. The Cathari, Ilan, and Lyrans never ratified. 4,000 years of law are built on a void.
He displayed the sealed archives, Decree 7701, signed by Vrentar, proving the cover-up. The images shimmered before the assembly, undeniable. Murmurs swelled into shouts. A delegate from the Qatari remnant stood, voice cracking. We were coerced. This council owes us recognition. The chamber teetered on chaos. The High Council leader rose, a frail Lyran draped in silver. Her voice projected calm. Mr. Vance, the council proposes a grand amendment. We will retroactively ratify the charter. Your death sentence will be commuted to permanent exile. Accept, and peace returns.
They're offering me life, but it's a poison deal. Ratifying now would bury the original crime, and Thaleen, who risked everything, would stay in a cell. I'd be a fig leaf for their fraud. Number, conditional justice is no justice at all. The charter must be invalidated entirely. Only then can you build something honest. I will not trade the truth for my life.
The amphitheater exploded. Half the delegates rose in ovation. Others pounded their desks in fury. The live feed flickered as billions of reactions flooded the networks. The Lyran leader raised a trembling hand. This hearing is recessed. The council will deliberate on full nullification. Until then, Mr. Vance is remanded to custody. Her voice betrayed fear.
They didn't rule against me. They're too scared. Now the whole galaxy watches them sweat. I've made my choice. Whatever comes next, the truth is out, and it can't be erased.
The live feeds looped Richard's words across 100 systems. I will not trade the truth for my life. In alien plazas, crowds swelled, not with rage, but with a stunned, hopeful silence. The lie of 4 millennia had never been so plainly named. Inside the sealed hearing chamber, the High Council splintered. The Lyran leader pleaded for legacy. Younger delegates demanded a clean reset. No one dared adjourn.
You fools! Nullify the charter, and every treaty, every trade deal, every border dissolves. The chaos will be bloodier than any war. I am still Chief Justice. Listen to me.
Thaleen is still in that cell because of me. If I win this, I demand her release. If I lose, they'll bury us both.
They offered to commute my sentence if I testify against him. I refused. He's the only one who ever treated us like we had rights.
A guard slid a new tablet through the slot. Thaleen's sedition charges reduced to document mishandling. She is safe. Richard exhaled for what felt like the first time in cycles.
One small victory. Now, I need the big one. The council is about to break. I can feel it.
Protests turned into vigils. On 3 worlds, citizens lined up at shuttered courts, holding candles and data screens tuned to the council feed. A new symbol emerged, 3 crossed seals, scrawled in defiance. For 11 cycles, the High Council debated. 14 procedural motions attempted to delay the vote, but each was defeated by a growing reformist bloc. On the 12th cycle, the Lyran leader's voice crackled through the cell's speaker. The High Council has reached a preliminary finding. The charter of the Veltor Accords is declared void ab initio. All rulings derived from it are null. Richard closed his eyes.
Void ab initio. 4,000 years of law. Erased with a single phrase. They actually did it.
Outside, the news spread like wildfire. Crowds cheered, but veteran diplomats warned of a legal vacuum that could ignite border wars within cycles.
This is insanity. You've handed the galaxy to chaos. I will not be silenced. My legacy is not over. Loyalists, resist this madness.
Vrentar is cornered, but a cornered beast is dangerous. I won't relax until I'm on a ship bound for Earth.
In the Council, a reformist bloc began drafting transitional protocols, new courts, interim laws. The old guard resisted, but the vote to proceed passed by a narrow margin. A guard slid a tablet through the slot. Formal release pending Council final vote. Transport to Earth arranged upon signature. Estimate 1 cycle.
One more cycle. I've waited years. I can wait one more. But until then, it's not over.
Thaleen was released from her cell, her forearms trembling as she was led to a medical station. The same guard who passed the tablet gave her a nod. In the Council's final session, a handful of traditionalists attempted a last-ditch procedural block, citing a forgotten bylaw. The Liran leader gavelled them down.
The last hurdle. Once that vote clears, I'm a free man and the system is reborn. But I've learned not to celebrate until the ink is dry.
62 to 18. The Council's vote flashed across every screen in the sector. The charter was nullified. Richard's conviction, along with thousands of others, was voided by default. The cell speaker crackled once more. Richard Vance, all charges are dropped. You are to be released immediately and provided transport to Earth. Richard exhaled.
I am going home.
The force field dissolved. Guards who once escorted him with cold efficiency now stood aside as he walked the long corridor alone.
Richard, wait.
Thaleen, her carapace still bearing the marks of detention, stood in the archway. She held out a folded plas sheet, a copy of the voided charter.
You kept the truth alive. Thaleen, I'd still be in that cell without you.
Go home, and maybe send us some of those Earth legal forms. We have a system to rebuild.
The transport broke atmosphere, and Richard saw the blue-green marble of Earth for the first time in years. He didn't smile, he just watched the weight lifting with every kilometer. 6 months later, a new sign hung in a Boston office. Vance, Xenoprocedural Defense. The first client, a reptilian merchant facing coalition extradition, already sat in the waiting room, clutching a stack of forms in triplicate. Richard won his first case in 42 minutes. The reptilian merchant's extradition order was invalid on 5 procedural grounds. The coalition prosecutor left the courtroom speechless.
Same game. New clients. They never learn.
Within a year, the coalition passed the Vance protocols. All judges were required to complete certification in Earth-style bureaucratic procedure before presiding. Former Chief Justice Vrentar, stripped of rank, sat in the front row, his amber eyes dull as he filled out procedural forms in triplicate. Richard's office filled with artifacts of his victories, a framed order denying extradition to the Qatari remnant, a ceremonial gavel from the reformed High Council.
Every framed paper on that wall is a life that didn't end in a venting chamber. That's the only metric that matters.
His firm grew. 3 associates, then 12, a Xenoprocedural Defense hotline that rang at all hours. He never lost a case.
They built a machine to kill me. I just showed them it had an off switch buried in the manual. Now everyone wants the manual.
In a public ceremony, the High Council formally archived the old judicial robes of Vrentar, placing them in a museum exhibit titled The Price of Procedural Neglect. As dusk settled over Boston, the office grew quiet. On Richard's desk, an old-fashioned telephone began to ring. Richard reached for the receiver, the old phone's weight familiar in his hand. The caller ID displayed a string of alien script he recognized. The Qatari Remnant Consulate.
Mr. Vance, we need your help. The Coalition just issued a mass detention order for our entire delegation. They claim old warrants under the Void Charter.
Tell your people to stay calm. I'll need a list of names and the original detention orders, and make sure they're in triplicate.
A pause on the line, then a confused chitter. Triplicate it? The old joke never got old.
It's a human thing. I'll have my team file a preliminary injunction by morning. You are not going anywhere.
He hung up gently, letting the receiver click into its cradle. Outside the window, Boston's skyline glittered, the stars beginning to appear.
Another case. Another fight. They built a machine to kill me and I just showed them it had an off switch buried in the manual. Now everyone wants the manual.
On the wall behind him, framed extradition orders hung like trophies. Each one a battle won, a life spared. The work was never finished. But for now, Richard Vance, the patent attorney from Boston who broke a galactic legal empire with paperwork and patience, allowed himself a small, quiet smile.
And the phone will ring again tomorrow.
The phone did ring again. And again. Every cycle brought a new case, a new loophole, a new chance to hold the powerful to their own rules. In courtrooms across Earth and the Coalition, his arguments became precedent. The Vance Protocols were cited more than any other legal text. Former Chief Justice Vrentar never missed a certification class. He filed his forms in triplicate, his amber eyes fixed on the clock. Thaleen was appointed head archivist of the reformed Coalition records. Her first act was to display the Voyage Charter in the public gallery. On quiet evenings, Richard often stayed late. The framed extradition orders on the wall caught the last light, each one a life that didn't end in a venting chamber. The old Earth penny, worn and smooth, remained on his desk, a reminder of the guard who believed. The galaxy had changed, but the gesture held its weight.
I used to think winning was about finding the flaw in the system. Now I know it's about giving the system a conscience.
He closed the last file of the day. Another extradition denied. Another family kept whole. The work never ended, and he preferred it that way. Outside, the Boston skyline glittered against the indigo sky. The first stars of the Coalition systems were already visible, a reminder that justice had no borders. On the desk, the phone sat silent. It would ring again tomorrow. Richard rose from his chair, joints creaking softly. Another day filed away. Outside, the city hummed its evening song.
Same time tomorrow then.
He paused at the doorway, glancing back at the wall of framed orders. Each one a story, a life, a line of fine print that held. The old Earth penny, worn and smooth, caught the last light on his desk, a small token of a guard's faith, still guarding his conscience.
The galaxy learned to read the fine print. That's enough.
He stepped into the hall, and the office lights dimmed automatically. Silence settled over the room like a closing argument. On the desk, the old telephone sat silent. But in the stillness, it seemed to wait, patient, dependable, a promise. Outside, the Boston skyline glittered against the indigo sky. The first stars of the Coalition systems were already visible in the window's reflection. The sign, Van's Xenoprocedural Defense, glowed softly against the night, a quiet monument to procedure and patience. Somewhere across the galaxy, a clerk was filing a form in triplicate, and somewhere a human had taught them why.